right. Well, welcome everyone. This is the June meeting for the local alcohol and drug planning committee. My name is Eric Geyer. I chair this meeting. Leaf comes to us as the Southern Oregon Outreach Coordinator for Oxford, and I think people are already fired up to hear about it. And Leaf, one of the dumb jokes I always make about Oxford House is I copy the movie Zoolander, and I always say that Oxford is so hot right now when I talk about it because so many great things have been happening, and the number of people who've been helped through Oxford and that model in itself more timely than ever as we look for new solutions for SUD and folks who needs housing. So excited to have you here today, and please, the floor is yours. Thanks for joining us.
I am Leaf. I am the Southern Oregon Outreach Worker for Oxford House. We're in 48 states. Currently in the state of Oregon, we have 204 houses providing 1,699 beds for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. I myself am a man in recovery. I haven't found a reason to drink alcohol or use any mind-altering substances since June 11th of 2016. In 2019, because I came out of treatment, I moved into an Oxford House, and it provided me a nice, safe, stable place for me to pursue and find my path in recovery. So in 2019, because I got inspired by what they do and I started giving back through service work, they offered me a job in 2019. And so that's what I've been doing since. I cover from Eugene to Medford. A lot of what my job entails is not only expansion, working with landlords and investors on finding and opening new houses, but providing support to the houses in my area, the chapters in my area. We are democratically ran, self-sustaining, self-supporting recovery housing is what it is. There's no house manager. I know a lot of you guys probably know all this. But yeah, we ultimately the inmates run the asylum, with some guidelines. There's a chapter committee that looks over and provides guidance. And then when they can't come up with a solution on their own, then they'll call me and then I'll come assist and whatnot. But I mean, it's really a design that works. It really helps people like myself find worth and find, just learn how to put one foot in front of the other and actually live in a society where we didn't know how to function quite before, so I mean, we learned how to pay our bills, and we learned how to, be responsible and take care of things that might just come natural to most people. But for us, it's something that has to be learned sometimes later in life than others. And Oxford House provides that, so I'm really happy. I'm trying to, this last year has been super different, I'm sure, for everyone. But I mean, so what I'm trying to do now that they're letting me get back out and start doing my job again is I'm just trying to reestablish connections with the community, get my foot in every door I can, get back to doing my job the way that I knew how to do it, and do the best I can to provide something that can help change lives, save lives, the same thing that was offered to me. So I guess with that being said, I mean, if anybody wants, I will put my contact info in the chat. I am more than happy to be the liaison if anybody has any questions or concerns or is trying to get somebody into an Oxford House. We do have a website. It's oxfordvacancies.com. If you pull that site up, you can put in any county that you're looking in. It will provide you a list of the houses, how many vacancies we have, a couple contact numbers for the house. If anybody wants to do any further research, we have a national website. It's oxfordhouse.org, and you'll find things on there like in early 2000, I want to say 2002, the Surgeon General did a study on Oxford House because at that time, we started in DC in 75, but at that time we were the top tier as far as recovering housing goes. And the study that he came up with, which is huge, is coming out of a treatment facility, you have a 20% chance of staying sober. Well, if you move into an Oxford House and you follow all the things that they, the rules and attend your recovery based meetings and just, follow the model of the Oxford House, your chance, if you stay there for a year to 15 months, your chances go from 20% to 80% of staying sober for up to 5 years, which is huge, for people like us. That's outrageous. So yeah, like I said, I will put my contact information, my email address, my phone number in the chat. I want to thank you guys for having me be here. I look forward to attending this, in the future with you guys as well. And if I guess at this point, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Sarah.
So I'm a person in treatment, and I'm doing pretty well. And I have, I don't know, some bad stuff in my background or whatever that I earned. How do I get into the Oxford House, and what's going to be required of me?
So really your only requirement is that you are an alcoholic or an addict. So what you'll do is you'll pull up that oxfordvacancies.com I was talking about, and then you'll just call the houses that have the vacancies that you're interested in, and you'll set up an interview. They typically, every house has a weekly house meeting. So you would either show up, or in today's day and age, you can do a Zoom or a phone interview, I'm sure. But you would just sit, they would ask you a series of questions. You'll interview with the residents of the house, and then they'll do a vote because they're democratically ran. Very rarely do people not get voted in, but it does happen. So I would recommend setting up as many interviews as you can in the area you're in. If you're looking in Jackson County, there's 13 houses right now. 3 of those are women's.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a chapter is?
A chapter is in any area. So from Eugene to Medford, for instance, there's 4 chapters. There's 2 in Eugene, 12 and 13. There's a chapter in Roseburg, which is actually held 2 houses from Coos Bay, which is chapter 17. And then Medford is chapter 2. And a chapter is they meet once a month. The president from each house goes once a month to these, or via Zoom, as it's been here as of recently. Attends a meeting once a month, and they will report on how many vacancies they have, if there's any conflicts in the house that need resolved, any number of ththings. If they have an issue with their landlord, or whatever the case may be, they meet once a month to talk about and to solve problems and all this. Well, there's also, they pay in chapter dues to the chapter. And what that money will go towards is, let's just say one of the houses in the area is at half capacity and it can't pay their bills. The chapter then will have a discussion, and they'll make a vote to, give the house a loan or donate money to the house to get them on their feet. And they'll all come up as a plan with all the houses in the area as far as funneling new members there to interview, to get them back full, up and running. And then one step above that, it's kind of a double umbrella. There's a state association, which each chapter chair will go every other month to a state association meeting, and it's kind of the same thing. It's just on a bigger level, and then it's just to oversee. Chapters oversee the houses in their area. The state association oversees the houses in the state. So I mean, it's really a good design.
Leaf, my name is Mike OMalley. I was involved in setting up Oxford houses in Washington State in the 80s and 90s. And we experienced a lot of not in my backyard sort of interference from neighbors and communities. I'm just wondering if you could comment on your experience currently here in Southern Oregon. Is there any of that?
I think that because we're established now, because I've heard a lot of stories about that, and in my experience thus far, since I've been on staff, I haven't really ran into much of that, even in the newer areas. I mean, once in a while we'll have a neighbor or two that's like, they don't know exactly what's up, and typically I'll just go talk to them. The guys in the house or girls in the house will be very open in the communication, and they see really fast that, like, we keep our yards mowed, we don't have parties, we're not loud, you know what I mean? So I haven't ran into too much of that, but I have heard some stories.
As we continue to pepper you with questions, I hope this is okay.
Yeah.
So I'll take you through some of the questions that I get, also similar to what Sarah was saying about Oxford. So are people who are working a program around MAT allowed into an Oxford setting?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are people with kids allowed into an Oxford setting?
Yes, absolutely. Not all states are like this, but in the state of Oregon, every Oxford house is child friendly.
Do people have to participate in 12-step groups to live in an Oxford setting?
Not necessarily 12-step groups, but it is very common. I would say most, if not all, of the houses will require you to go to 2 recovery-based meetings per week while you're there. Something to pursue bettering yourself.
about relapse? If somebody relapses or continues to use or has continued use while they're in a house?
So they are no tolerance. If somebody uses and or possesses while they're in the house, they will get a 24-hour notice of eviction. They can, however, re-interview after 30 days. But because of the nature of what we are and to keep the family safe, inside, we have to, if somebody's drinking or using, we have to ask them to leave.
Are people allowed to bring friends, or is there over to the house or to visit, or I guess that would fall under the romance category. I get that from sometimes in terms of guests at the house.
So the requirements would be that they can pass a UA. That they're clean and sober. You can't bring anybody into the house that wouldn't be able to provide a clean UA. But yeah, you can. Typically, you can stay out 3 nights a week. Once there's usually what we call a blackout period. So somebody will move in, and it's most common that for 30 days, and it's just to get acquainted with the people in the house. For 30 days, they can't be out past 10 o'clock at night. Some houses, it's midnight on the weekends, Friday and Saturday. But after that period, after that 30-day period, you can be out 3 nights a week. You can have a guest over for 3 nights a week. And you can have, you can bring anybody over if they want to have dinner or whatever the case may be. But like I said, they just can't be loaded. And if anybody asks them to provide, for a UA, they would have to provide a clean UA. Otherwise they would have to leave.
Gotcha. I realize these are kind of prying, but I'm so fascinated by this model. We actually have a loop of videos from people talking about their lived experience. And one of the videos is a person saying, when I heard that 80% of people who go through Oxford for a year stay clean, I gave it a shot. So that study you mentioned influenced that person to the point where a big part of their recovery was like based on that, which is really cool to hear. And then I also heard you say that there are 13 houses in Jackson County. So is that somewhere around 52, is that about 60 beds in Jackson County that are Oxford within the houses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good guess. I could give you a more accurate number,
right.
But yeah.
I just think when we look at
on average between like 8 to 10 people per house, something like that. Oh,
wow. So quite a few then. Yeah. That number of resources where housing is so scarce, and this population that we're working with is often very difficult to house and find resources. It's just incredible that this exists, and it really asks nothing of the government or anybody else in terms of funding and investment. It's pretty incredible. So, yeah.
I'd like to comment though and ask Leif if you could jump in. Again, I was really heavily involved in the 80s. I'm really pleased to hear that you got kids allowed now and all this other stuff, but the expectation still is that someone has been to treatment, and when they're interviewed by the Oxford House group, there is a difference between primary treatment, and this recovery house thing. So that philosophy is shared, correct, Leif, in the beginning?
As far as someone having to have been to treatment?
Yes, and the expectation that it's a recovery house living environment, family, as opposed to a primary treatment experience.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not necessarily true, and it may have been back then, but it's not necessarily true anymore that someone has to have been through treatment.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they just have to want to be sober. You know what I mean? That's really all it is. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Leif, I have another one for you. What does it look like for rent?
So depending on the house that you're in, and we call it EES, which is equal expense shared. So everybody in there kind of pays an equal amount. It really just depends on the house and how many residents that it holds. But typically, I would want to say in Southern Oregon, you're going to pay between $375 and $450 a month.
Another thing I want to let the LADPC know that we refer a lot of people to Oxford over here. And if you guys know anybody that's trying to get in, we do have applications, and I know where all the houses are as well, and I can take them there as well. Just want to let you guys know that. We do that here at Reclaiming Lives.
Are there usually a waiting list to get in? And is there any limit on the length of stay for someone living there?
No, and that's one of the things that stands us apart from what you would consider a halfway house or anything like that, where a lot of places will say you have 6 months in this bed and then we have to move you out because someone else needs it. With Oxford House, we will open more houses to provide more beds. So once you're there, because people recover at different rates. So once you're there until you want to leave, So, I mean, there is no time limit.
Great.
I lived in an Oxford house for 4 years myself. I
Oh,
was
cool.
there for the better part of 2 years before I felt safe enough to move out on my own, and then I stayed because it provided me a place to live while I cleaned up my financial wreckage, because I made quite a mess. So I mean, it really gave me a springboard to
Mhm.
become a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have waiting lists, Leaf, or is there usually an opening for people who need one?
Well, typically there is openings. Sometimes though, let's just say that all the houses are full and somebody wants to interview, they will have a waiting list. And that way, if a bed becomes open, they'll pull their waiting list out and they'll call and say, hey, we have an open spot, Yeah.
And in Josephine, will the women's house bring you up to 2 houses, or
Yeah, the
Okay.
women's house will bring us up to 2. Yep.
and any plans to go bigger there?
Yeah, when I first went in there, my state coordinator told me he thought that Grants Pass could handle 2 to 3 houses. He said, and now that I've been spending time there, I like, for instance, in Roseburg, there's 9 houses. I don't see any reason why Grants Pass couldn't hold just as many as Roseburg. I mean, the experience
Yeah.
I've been having, anyways.
Yeah, great. Cape Junction too. I'm sure the list is a mile long of places that could use it, right?
Yeah.
That's great, though.
Any other questions or comments for Leaf today? Leaf, it's been great having you involved with this group as somebody who's going to come and be a part of it when you can. And thanks so much for presenting today. I think it's one of those incredible resources, and it really is changing lives. You just see so many people that have been impacted by it. So really glad that you guys are doing what you're doing.
Thanks for having me.